After 9 years of being sleep-deprived and overworked, Yuji's mind began breaking down and he started running away in his insanity until he jumped to hug Truck Kun, ending his life. In that instant, his soul was brought into a different world. But when a slime appeared by his side, it began leading him deep into the forests. And so he followed it for hours until they arrived at a mysterious cabin filled with hundreds of magic books inside. Among one of them was the Grimoire of Divine Destruction. But when he noticed hundreds of slimes gathering at his feet, a divine system activated, taming all of them to become his familiars. Immediately, they began leaping around the room to find all the mystical grimoires, and within a matter of seconds, he acquired thousands of skills through their eyes and earned the Sage title. The slimes began calling him Yuji, making him realize that for the first time in his life, he finally had a name. 1 week passed since then, and he entered the magical academy to learn about their world, but broke the divine sphere as it appraised his mana level. Even while testing the strength of his fire magic, the instructor wondered how he casted a spell without an incantation. So Yuji apologized to him for forgetting to use it, and went on to say the word fireball before incinerating the rock out of existence. On his way to the Adventurers Guild, a dryad began begging him for help, saying that she needed to collect all the dragon mushrooms in the forest. He accepted her request, then his slimes began gathering all the shrooms in the forest, so she finally had all the ingredients for creating her potions. She summoned a field of dryad flowers, swearing that she'll never forget the favor he did for her. On his way back home, when he used his slime to scout the forest, an explosion went off as Yuji dodged a goblin trying to kill him. However, he summoned his slimes to blast the goblin down and left the area without realizing that a demonic stone was spawning them. After returning to the Adventurers Guild, the receptionist wondered if he was giving up on his quest, and all the hunters were disgusted that a weak tamer was among them, especially this guy who looked like a shiny stain. However, Yuji commanded his slime to release all of the dryad flowers. But when the guildmaster wondered how he obtained enough flowers for 2 years, a scout screamed that a wave of monsters were invading the forest. At the same time, the slime he launched the previous night revealed that thousands of goblins were heading towards the guild, repeating Yuji's name. So Agil commanded all of the hunters to evacuate the town. But as the soldiers vowed to sacrifice their lives protecting their families, Yuji revealed that he had a way to save them all. As he took out a massive dragon bone from his slime, he revealed that he could use this remnant to recreate a wyvern's flames and wipe out the entire goblin army. However, all of the soldiers thought a useless slime Tamer would be leading them to their deaths. But the shiny stain realized something was off about his slimes and told Agil to give Yuji a chance, saying they would be under his command. So as they began securing the guild's borders, Yuji went to the top of the building, and once the hunters threw aerial grenades for the archers to shoot down, a barrage of blades rained on the field. However, the goblins continued appearing, so Yuji put back the dragon bone to his slime's throat as he was lying about its power the entire time. In that moment, he activated the Sage system, analyzing his skills to save the town while annihilating all of the goblins. But Dryad saw a mysterious man holding a magic stone in the forest, so when Yuji told his slimes that it was nice knowing them, the poor morons realized he was about to sacrifice them, but leaped through the dimensional gate as the guild attendant realized something was off about Yuji. Just then, the slimes materialized above the man. So Yuji transferred his mana to restrain the mage while activating a barrier to dispel the stone's magic. But a spell forced the man to bite his tongue off. At the same time, his shiny stain's stamina was getting drained, so Yuji commanded his slimes to assist him as he transferred his magic to launch fireballs that incinerated the goblin. But the town was already being overrun by the waves. The only way to save them was by activating his Hellfires of Demise, Yuji realized. But after seeing that it would also wipe out the town, he decided to unleash a magical barrier to protect the soldiers from its explosion. As Lily thought he was amazing, he told her to stop hiding and to evacuate the hunters from the front lines. Once he commanded the slimes to create a perimeter around the town, Dryad entered her dimensional gate, and the slimes had surrounded the village. However, one of the goblins had broken through, but as Agil tried slashing it down, Shiny Stain rushed forward to knock the beast back, but it was unscathed from all of their attacks. As they were about to die, the legendary Femur bit down the Goblin King and dragged the hunters back to the village. In that instant, Yuji activated his barrier around the entire town, and they wondered who was capable of unleashing a god-level spell of this scale. The adventurers wondered how Yuji casted a spell of this magnitude, as it would destroy anyone else's body, but Lily stared back astonished by his strength. However, some of the goblins had survived the blast, and Yuji nearly collapsed on his feet as his health was depleted from his MP overdraw. But he commanded the slimes to prepare for another round. As he cast the barrier, he activated his Hellfires of Demise, once again burning the entire field to eradicate the remaining goblins. But after casting the spell, his body collapsed onto the ground. By the time he woke up, he saw all the slimes waiting for him along with Lily, while the adventurers had located the lantern of the magic stone. Realizing the prophecy was beginning as Yuji drank the soup Lily made for him, she revealed that she had kept his secret from all of the adventurers, but wondered why he was hiding his powers. However, he decided to not say a word, so she began leaving, wishing for him to sleep well. His old life was nothing but misery and exploitation, so he was glad that for once, he was able to use his life to save others instead of wasting it away. And so he began walking through the forest at night, but kept a slime to investigate the lantern, because when the guild master revealed that Central City's demise would come soon, Yuji realized that was their next destination, and they arrived at the capital of the world a week later. But a dragon had noticed his aura and 3 men had gathered to eliminate Yuji. During the blue moon inside the city, all of the slimes wished they could eat food, making him realize that they hadn't eaten anything for an entire week, but realized that everyone was staring at them. However, Gabba saw the butchery, so Yuji decided to buy his entire shop to feed his slime. A few hours later, they entered the guild and Ruby said that a slime tamer was too weak to join their guild, but when she saw that he had tracking abilities, she accepted him right away as it was the rarest ability to acquire. Just then, a guy who looked like Dracula, whose name was Vladimir, asked him if he would like to join their party, and Tina went on to introduce herself along with Lisa. However, Yuji revealed that this would be his first time in a party, but Lisa didn't care as she thought his monster tracking skills would save their lives. After all, she thought he was better than Vladimir since all of his parties mysteriously disappeared, but Yuji remembered the same way his co-workers used to argue and hated them for it. As they walked together through the forest, he remembered their plan to find the Earth Dragon's hideout, but he realized something was off about their party. Out of nowhere, Vladimir began running until they were surrounded by 4 wolves, and the girls wondered why he led them towards wolves instead of evading them. However, Yuji realized there was a 5th one above them, but as he tried to use magic, Vladimir cut the beast down, telling them that he would take care of it as he slashed the wolves while dodging their attacks. Even so, Yuji wondered why Vladimir purposely left the wolves alive and why they were playing dead, but decided to go along with his story to find out. By the time the night arrived, Yuji realized he had taken them down a different path, but Vladimir claimed that going off the route was the best way to avoid bandits. However, he told them to sleep first, as he would be the one keeping watch at night. At 3 a.m., Yuji's slimes alerted him that Vladimir ran away during his shift, revealing that both Tina and Lisa had also disappeared. As Vladimir continued sprinting, he realized that something was watching him. But although the proud Fenrir wondered if he was caught, he realized that Tina and Lisa were on the other side of the trees, and Tina revealed that she became suspicious when he offered to be the one taking the night shift. However, when Lisa thought they should ask Yuji for help, Tina said he was too weak as a tamer, but Vladimir began walking towards them with his blade. As soon as the bushes moved, Vladimir threw his blade towards one of Yuji's slimes. But although he thought he killed the spy, he saw his blade was empty. Gabba had managed to barely conceal his presence and was scared that it would have been his last day. But Yuji revealed that he had granted him invincibility to save his life. As Vladimir began running away, the girls started tailing him, but he maneuvered around the traps he set until he arrived at the hut where the 3 men had congregated the night before. When Elder Melhace wondered what Vladimir had gathered, he revealed that he had gathered 2 valuable girls along with their target and was planning to say they died against a horde of goblins, just like he did about all of his other parties. However, he had already known the girls were tailing him, but Melhace thought it was the perfect time and began choking one of his men, telling the useless victim that the night of sacrifice was upon them. The 2 girls realized they needed to escape, but as they tripped one of their traps, Vladimir spotted them and they realized their lives were about to end. Just then, however, one of the other traps went off as the Elder realized a massive monster was tripping their alarms, so they decided to ignore it. However, the beast was none other than Yuji's familiars, and Yuji has created a medium spell to conceal his powers, commanding his slimes to take position. When the girls saw Yuji's slimes, he transferred his range Frost Blast onto them as an icicle dome encapsulated their entire hideout, making him realize that he was a lot stronger than he expected. After taking their bodies away, Lisa wondered if he was the one who casted the spell, but Yuji told them that a rogue ice dragon must have saved their lives because he was too weak to cast any spells. Just then, a purple mist began casting over the sky, but as they were about to head back, Yuji revealed that he would scout the area before launching his slime towards the sky to investigate the entire forest. When the useless moron found a good spot, Tina and Lisa wondered what the hell they just witnessed, especially as they watched the slimes creating a fireplace and building their tents. Before long, the worthless girls were asleep, but Yuji remembered the Elder's prophecy about the Blue Moon's sacrificial calamity spawning. The following day, as they continued to search for the Earth Dragon, Yuji decided to hide his real powers to appear ordinary and activated his magic limiter, casting rocks at a wolf to test his magic. But when his slimes began to destroy all the monsters ahead, the skies turned purple and a light ascended towards the ground, destroying the forest with a great blast as a blue dragon appeared in the sky. As Yuji noticed the beast, he warned the girls that it was right behind them, and they began running off towards the mountains. However, the Fenrir and his slimes were already ahead of them, annihilating all the monsters around the area. So when they arrived, they found them all slain, and the girls wondered how Yuji was able to control this many powerful slimes. Just then, the ground began to open and the earth dragon appeared before their eyes. At that moment, Yuji realized that it was hiding underground the entire time. With the girls afraid, they decided to hide behind a rock, but Yuji told them that he would slay the monster. Just as it began charging at him, he cast a spell and his slime launched rocks at the dragon. However, it was unscathed, so two other slimes spewed flames at it. But the girls realized that the scales weren't taking any damage, so Yuji decided to increase his magic. But when the dragon launched rocks at the girls, his slimes fired smaller rocks to intercept them. As the dragon grew angry, it began rolling towards him. But Yuji avoided getting crushed and used his slimes to launch rocks at the same time. But the dragon was still unscathed and began dashing towards him until a massive whirlwind gushed out from the rocks. As Yuji activated an illumination spell, he spotted the dragon before him and unleashed his hellfires of demise, burning the dragon within the flare until only its skill skull was left. That evening, when they arrived at the guild, Ruby was shocked to discover that they slayed the earth dragon. So the slime vomited the skull. For their reward, she paid them 10,000 gold coins. But the chief of knights told Yuji they needed to talk. At the meeting, Ken began saying that the blue dragon appeared just as prophesied. But Yuji hated these same meetings in his previous life, and Ken asked him to describe the earth dragon he'd battled. So as Yuji discovered the thoughtography skill, he cast the image of the dragon on his paper. Throughout the history of mankind, only one person had ever possessed this skill. So the priest revealed the Book of Legends. According to it, the dragon had only appeared once before and grew under darkened skies in 3 days before wiping out the entire continent. When Ken wondered how it was defeated, the priest revealed that it was slain by a divine emissary who had the power of the gods. 30 years ago, during an eclipse of the sun, a spirit summoning ritual was carried out at the capital's cathedral to summon a hero 30 years into the future to rescue their world from calamity. However, the priest thought that the ritual failed since the dragon appeared exactly 30 years after the ritual took place. Just then, the skies turned purple and a slime told Yuji that the dragon was increasing in size. When Yuji revealed this to the men, they realized their world may be destroyed in 3 days. So Ken thought their only option was to attack the dragon the next day. Later, at the cafeteria, Yuji noticed the ugly priest and wondered why he was staring at him like he was a child. So later that night, the priest introduced himself as Stale Kotamine and revealed an ancient dagger that he brought from the capital. As he gave it over to Yuji, the system revealed that it was an unbreakable dagger of Kethai's and said that it focuses on magic effects. The priest said that he was offering it to Yuji as a gift and called him the divine emissary. That night, as Yuji wondered how they would fight the dragon, his slime informed him that it was starting to grow even larger. Realizing it would be even stronger tomorrow, he remembered the instructor telling him that his magic was unusual. But when Yuji wondered if it meant his magic was weak, the instructor said that it was too strong. So he realized he was born to save this world. So that night he headed out to the forest with his minions, and they soon came across the dragon. As he was ready to destroy it, he activated the Hellfire of Decimation and a slime launched a flame that erupted into an explosion. However, the beast was unscathed, and as it grew angry, it shot a blast across the entire forest and even destroyed the cliff. When it was over, Yuji was uninjured as he was protected by his shield. However, he soon realized that the dragon was absorbing the energy from the forest and its size began to increase. So Yuji revealed his dagger, realizing his only chance was to slay it, and thought he could concentrate his Hellfire of Demise into the blade. Just then, he began charging with his minions. And as the dragon unleashed a blast, he activated his shield and landed without getting burned. As he started charging again, the beast prepared another blast, but he threw a slime towards it and activated a barrier to deflect the attack. Realizing his chance, he drew his knife, and as he activated a jump boost spell, he began leaping higher and higher towards the dragon. However, as the beast tried to obliterate him, Yuji launched a fireball and stabbing it in the eye. He unleashed Hellfire of Demise into its body, causing it to hit the ground. Just as he thought it was dead, it smacked him off with its tail, sending him crashing through the rocks. Luckily, he managed to activate his shield but realized that he was running low on him. Just then, the dragon rose high and prepared a mighty blast, but Yuji cast a series of shields to protect himself. As the dragon spewed the energy blast, Yuji wondered how he could lure it towards the ground and soon realized that his shields were getting weaker. At that moment, he noticed the divine strike ability and raised his hand, unleashing a terrible blast on the dragon that sent it crashing to the ground. Hoping to utilize the advantage, he mounted Proud Wolf, and they started charging at the beast. As Yuji stabbed its neck, he sliced it with a hellfire of demise and successfully split its head, causing it to explode into red cells before vanishing. So with the dragon eliminated, Yuji decided to head for the town. On the following day, when Ken appeared, he told him that the purple skies had cleared away and wondered who managed to defeat the dragon. However, he thought Yuji probably did and thanked him for his help. At the cafeteria, Tina began telling Yuji that they would be recognized as national heroes for offering to battle the dragon, even though they never actually did anything. Hearing her words, Yuji thought they were a pair of useless weaklings and wondered how they'd managed to survive in the forest. As Lisa wondered what he intends to do now, Yuji revealed that he would be leaving them, but has no idea where else to go. So Lisa suggested that he heads for Ricardo, a town on the west side of the forest, saying that they serve all the best food in the world, unlike their useless junk town. That evening, as Yuji began to leave, they waved him goodbye, hoping he would survive on his own, but he left his slimes to watch over them. As they began traveling through the forest, Dryad appeared on the system and summoned him immediately. When he arrived, she revealed that special mushrooms have started growing on the spot where the dragon was slain and said that she needs his help in creating a special potion. As he tried asking why, she appeared from a tree and revealed that she can make sage potions with the red mushrooms and produce mana restoratives with the blue mushrooms. When Yuji wondered what exactly the blue mushroom does, Dryad told him that it revives magic powers. However, she discovered the potion was having an unusual color and revealed that something was wrong with the mushrooms. She said that they probably packed too much magical powers, but was hoping that she could fix the remaining mushrooms with some clear water. Deciding to help her, Yuji created a distiller with his barrier magic and told her to boil some water until it was clear. At that moment, Dryad remembered the very first time they met, after he first reincarnated. He found her unconscious on a tree and revived her with magic conveyance. As he told her that he transferred some of his magic into her, he demanded to know what happened. So she revealed that her power was drained away by a magic stone and said that she could never leave the forest. So immediately, Yuji activated a Dispel Curse and turned the stone into a rock. Just then, monsters tried coming out of it, but he activated an anti-magic barrier and unleashed Hellfire of Decimation, burning them instantly until they vanished. To show her appreciation for his help, Dryad summoned several dried flowers from the tree roots, saying that she owes her life to him. As Yuji wondered why the potion looks like magic stones, Dryad revealed that they were fused with Dragon's Grace, a special magic power that can only be found at the spot thought of a dead dragon. This special power makes the mushrooms sprout, and she told him that Dragon's Grace can be used for both good and evil. She said that it could heal all kinds of wounds and could even summon any kind of monsters. Just as the slimes finished purifying the water, Dryad mixed it with the potion and it turned blue instantly. Excited that it finally worked, she thanked him for helping her, realizing the potion would come in handy. So a few minutes later, she gave him some sage potions and mana restoratives, just as he asked, saying that she would be returning to the forest and vanished before his eyes. As they continued their travels, Yuji realized that the fog was covering their path. So Proud Wolf revealed that some humans were close by and began following the scent towards a new path. Shortly, they arrived at an old village and wondered if this was Ricardo. As Yuji tried looking around, he noticed the ugly-faced villagers and thought their creepy smiles were as disgusting as their huts. Just then, the village head appeared before him and wondered how he found his way here. But Yuji said it was an accident, as he decided to invite him for a meal. He said he wishes to fill him up for his journey. However, as Yuji spotted the disgusting food, he told him that he wasn't hungry, realizing the food was probably from the dumpster. As the chief wondered if he had a reason for entering the village, Yuji revealed that he was heading for Ricardo before missing his way. Just then, he noticed the creepy villagers staring at him from the window. And as the chief tried saying that they were surprised to have a visitor, Yuji began to leave, having grown sick of their creepy, disgusting faces. As they continued through the forest, Yuji thought they would soon arrive at Ricardo. However, when they came out of the forest, they found themselves inside a blizzard and wondered if they were in a different world. So as they continued through the cold, Yuji decided to activate an insulation barrier for warmth. After a few hours, they finally arrived at Ricardo, and the guards told him that the blizzard mysteriously started a few days ago. When they wondered why he came, he revealed that he was here for some food. So inside the town, he tried finding a restaurant but realized the streets were deserted and that even the waters were frozen. As he finally arrived at one, the lady told him that they were closed up for the day and were more concerned about staying warm than making food. As Yuji thought the food must definitely be delicious, he wondered if the only thing they needed was firewood, but Lily told him that it was hard to find it. However, Yuji ignored her because he wanted to eat the food already. So he headed off to the forest, hoping to make some firewood. He summoned an axe, and with combat art, he chopped down a dozen trees with a single slash. Within a few minutes, he had already chopped them into logs, and as he activated the slime moisture absorption skill, his slimes warmed all the logs until they were dry. So he returned to the restaurant like every other hopeless person. He asked if she could cook with it, so she hurried off to find the chef. By the time he arrived, he said the log was too dry and that it would burn down the entire place if they tried to cook with it. Before they knew it, Yuji activated his slime moisturization spell and returned it to the chef. At that moment, he realized that it was exactly what they needed, and as they lit the stove, he promised to make Yuji a special meal. His words were the best news Yuji has ever had, so he commanded his slime to spew the remaining logs immediately. It vomited them into a large pile, and as Yuji activated slime moisturization, the slimes warmed up the logs at that instant. Just then, his stomach growled, so the chief decided to prepare him a meal for his hard work. Before long, he served him grilled steak, and the taste sent Yuji straight into the heavenly realm. When he was done, he thanked them for the food, but the chef told him that this wasn't even close to being their best dish. Excited by the thought, Yuji wondered how it was possible and promised to return the next day for a taste of the food. However, Lily began telling him that they could not use up all the firewood, seeing as the entire town has no wood to heat up their homes. At that moment, Yuji thought this was his chance to impress her and declared that he would come back, swearing to come back with more logs. Shortly, he arrived at the Adventurers Guild and realized that the only thing on their wanted lists was firewood. As he offered to take on the easy task, the mistress told him to meet the firewood leader for instructions. So as the wood instructor, Watka looked at his ID, he welcomed him, saying that they can hardly meet the demands of the town to deliver 5 tons of firewood every day. He said that only their village has been having the blizzard and told him that the earlier village he came across has always been deserted. Yuji thought it was definitely mysterious and decided to begin his work. As Watka began saying that he looks too skinny and useless to actually do anything, Yuji chopped several trees with a single slash. In an instant, he began cutting them up into logs and stacked them up into a pile. Just then, his slimes began warming them up, and Watka thought that Yuji must certainly be an alien. At the end of the day, Yuji prepared several piles of logs, enough to last the entire town for a few days. However, he thought it wasn't enough and went on a chopping spree, slicing nearly all the trees in the forest and turning them into more logs. So with his impressive work, he made a lot of money from the guild and even passed the night inside a comfortable room. The next day at the restaurant, as he was served a new meal, the taste sent him into nirvana and he thought he was floating in the clouds. However, the chef revealed that it wasn't even his best dish, and Lily said that the Rishia herb that was used in cooking their best meal is being devoured by monsters, and that they could only make a new dish if all the monsters were gone. Without saying a single word, Yuji began heading out, ready to annihilate every monster for a taste of this food. Shortly, he commanded his minions to scout the woods for the beasts. And as his slimes came across a monster boar, Yuji activated a spell, burning the beast instantly. Before long, he noticed a mysterious stone, and as he decided to have a look at it, Dryad told him that she could sense traces of magic from inside of it. As Yuji touched the stone, they discovered that it was absorbing his magic, and he said it was probably Dragon Grace, the powerful magic that creates cursed magic stones. Dryad revealed that the stone was absorbing all the magic within the area, and Yuji thought the disappearance of magic must have surged and certainly caused the blizzard. Realizing it was the only way to stop the snow, Yuji cast an anti-magic barrier on the stone and expelled the curse, turning it into a rock instantly. Within a few hours, he had expelled more than 100 magical stones around the forest and marked the areas using thoughtography. Just as they arrived at the middle of the forest, he thought some huge trees were intentionally left untouched and said that they were probably protecting a secret entrance. As he commanded Dryad to withdraw, she wondered what he intended to do. So he told her that he would burn up all the trees before him. As she agreed to his plan, saying that it was certainly the right thing to do, he unleashed his hellfire of Tamer across the forest, burning all the trees in a mighty explosion. So at the center of the hole, they discovered a secret entrance, and Yuji revealed that he would certainly enter the underground to discover who the enemies were. As Yuji destroyed the entrance, they discovered a secret tunnel, and he descended inside. Before long, he noticed a huge machine and realized that he was inside a large factory. As he spotted more machines, he wondered if the magic stones were created here. Just then, 2 losers hurried inside, wondering why the machines were no longer working. They thought they must have been destroyed by the explosion in the forest and hurried out to inform their leader. As Yuji arrived at a passage, he realized that he could be easily spotted, so he cast monster stealth on his slimes to make them invisible, and they continued on their own. So as he returned to the forest, the slimes revealed that they had found the men, and they squeezed their way inside, jumping across the passage until they arrived at a dead end. Just then, they noticed 2 levers, and Yuji figured they should probably be pulled at the same time. So as the slimes pushed down on the levers, the door opened at that instant. Shortly, they discovered a ladder and realized this was the end of the factory, so they started making their way up. At the same time, Yuji arrived on a cliff and realized that the old creepy village was right before him. In the village, his slimes began listening to the mysterious men, and Yuji realized that the useless creeps were pretending to be villagers so that they would forge magic stones in the underground. When the leader Javier discovered that their curse well was already destroyed by an explosion, he began telling his men that their curse well had been destroyed and thought a meteor had crashed into it. With the entire factory screwed, he said that they must retrieve all the magic stones and abandon the village immediately. However, when one of the men thought they would be spotted moving around the forest, Javier told them to execute all the witnesses they came across, since their plans were ruined already and thought the village was of no use as a cover. As the men headed out, Yuji commanded his slimes to surround the village, thinking some innocent villagers may have been captured already. However, they discovered the village was deserted and that the ugly group were all that remained. So as the slimes made their way to the library, Yuji told them to consume all the books, so they started devouring them like venom. At the same time, in the forest, Yuji noticed two useless dudes from the evil group, so he cast magical nets and successfully restrained them. However, as they realized they'd been exposed, they screamed and Isekaied themselves at that instant. Just then, the slimes found a sealed entrance and Yuji realized it must be an important room. So he directed the slimes to stand before the candles and blew them out with Wind Slicer. At that moment, the door opened, revealing a room full of treasure, and Yuji realized the useless men were probably selling all the magic stones for gold. Just then, a member arrived and discovered their treasure room had been swept close clean. So as the rest of the gang realized this, they immediately discovered that the presence of their other members had vanished from the forest. At that moment, Javier revealed that their curse was not destroyed by a meteorite after all, but rather by a new enemy. Afraid they would be captured, one man wondered why they had not been attacked already. So Javier said that the enemy probably discovered that their deaths would activate the cleansing flame and would destroy the entire world. However, Yuji was only just discovering this and realized that eliminating them all was not an option after all. As Javier decided to suggest a plan, he drew his dagger, saying that destroying the world was the better thing to do. His useless disciples thought he was probably right and decided to draw their daggers, so at the same time they screamed a useless chant about cleansing the world. At that moment, the cleansing fire lost control and the ground began to quake. As Yuji realized it would soon erupt, he covered his slimes inside a barrier sphere and launched them out of the village like a good father determined to protect his babies. So immediately, he activated a series of anti-magic barriers to contain the explosion. Just then, a green flame spurted from the ground, obliterating the entire village and began destroying the barrier. As Yuji realized it wouldn't hold, he started searching for a stronger barrier to contain the flame, but his walls began to collapse. Right then, he discovered the perfect cover and made a combination of barriers into a total isolation array. As he activated the magic, a dark shield covered up the flame, but the fierce wind nearly blew him away and his MP began decreasing like it was on a speed timer. Even so, the explosion only increased and nearly destroyed even this barrier. But he managed to hold it off until it erupted towards the sky and formed a mighty cloud. With the world safe again, Yuji noticed his MP was in the negatives and realized that he was close to getting sent off to another Isekaied. That night, when they arrived at the village, he discovered the people were waiting for him, and as he wondered why they stayed up past their bedtime, Waka told him that they noticed the mighty explosion in the forest, and Lily revealed that they were afraid he may have been crushed by a meteorite. Yuji told them that he was happy to see the town safe, so Waka told him that the meteorite probably stopped the blizzard. At that moment, Yuji noticed that the frozen waters were starting to melt, and by the next day, he realized the weather was as warm as summer. As Waka invited him for breakfast, he said that they intended to celebrate the end of the winter. So inside the restaurant, Yuji discovered that he was being celebrated as the guest of honor, and Waka told him that the townspeople were happy that he provided them with firewood during the blizzard. Just then, Lily appeared before his eyes and thanked him for eliminating the monster boar. So with the beast dead, they've managed to stock up the best Rishia herbs, and before long, she served him a special treat for his help. As Yuji took a bite, the beautiful taste of the food gave him was the perfect one he had ever tasted. When he woke up that evening, he decided to read the scrolls from the abandoned village, but the words vanished before his eyes. However, only a single scroll stood out, and he realized it was a list of people that the Blue Moon of Salvation group were trying to eliminate. Meanwhile, in a nearby city, two assassins annihilated a bunch of people, and a man called Yuki discovered that Yuji's name was next on the list. So a few days later, they began spying on him from a mountain, wondering if he was a worthy target. However, Yuji knew he was being spied on already. Having noticed his name on the scroll to keep Ricardo safe, he had decided to leave immediately. And the ugly girl that looks like Lily suggested he heads for Virginia. When he wondered why, she told him that he would find the best monster armor in the town and thought it would be perfect for him. As Yuji continued heading towards the new town, he discovered he was being followed by the assassins. And as he took a nap, hoping to appear like a regular Tamer, Yuki, and a girl, Sona continued spying on him, wondering if he has overpowered skills. When Yuki tried suggesting that they eliminate him in his sleep, Sona told him that he was still only a potential target. They would only annihilate him if they were certain that he was a threat, she said. But Yuki thought this was worse than babysitting a preschooler. However, Yuji could hear every single word they were saying, but thought that ending their worthless lives would only draw more attention on him and realized that he must convince them that he was just a random loser. As he arrived at Bejinya, the dude continued spying on him, and Sona thought he must be a powerful tamer for deciding to buy armor from the best smith in town. However, Yuji pretended to have no money and was shooed off from the shop like a hopeless loser. Just then, he bumped into a dude on the street and started begging for his life like a useless moron, before getting turned away from a fruit stall. The assassins thought he was probably a broke, and Yuki suggested that they abandon him when they noticed he was drinking too much PG juice. However, Sona wasn't buying it just yet, so Yuji thought of convincing them that he was truly a big loser so that they can get off his tail already. Before long, he arrived at the guild and offered to take down a rush bull. When the assassins realized this, Yuki thought he was certainly one weak loser, but Sona said she wanted to see him in a fight. Shortly, Yuji arrived on the mountain and told his minions that he wouldn't activate any offensive magic during the quest. As Proud Wolf asked how he would protect himself, Yuji decided to abandon it to the quest, telling it to get the job done on its own. At that moment, a bull started rushing to eliminate it, but the wolf managed to knock it away, killing it instantly. As the wolf discovered its power, the furs stood on end, ready for battle, and Yuji remembered the first time he spotted it. A few days after he reincarnated, he tried finding his way out of the forest, but Proud Wolf appeared before his eyes, hungry for meat. However, as it tried to devour him, Yuji cast a magical net to restrain it. But as he noticed the wolf was sad, he decided to activate monster telepathy and discovered that the wolf was begging for its life. Deciding to spare, he wondered if it would allow him to become its tamer, and the wolf agreed immediately. Just then, Proud Wolf vowed to defeat the bulls and ended them in an instant. At the sight of this, Yuki and Sona thought Yuji must certainly be powerful for managing to tame the wolf, and Sona wondered if he should be eliminated already. With Yuji desperate to convince them, he decided to heal the bulls, hoping they would realize that the wolf's attack was weak and useless. However, as the bulls charged again, Proud Wolf annihilated them immediately, but Yuji revived them once more. At this point, the wolf was already exhausted, and Yuki thought its teeth were more useless than an Olympic lifeguard. However, Proud Wolf managed to rile itself up, so Yuji upgraded the bulls with physical boost. As the wolf realized it would certainly be squashed, he started running for his dear life, and the bulls shattered the rock before it. As Yuji realized his wolf was about to get his life beating, he tried boosting its strength, but Proud Wolf turned down his help, determined to face the bulls without an upgrade. So as they began charging once more, it charged back and finally managed to defeat them. Just then, a bull started charging at him, but he summoned his sword and sliced it, instantly realizing he just blew his disguise. However, with the assassins in shock, they wondered how he managed to summon the sword, but thought it was probably dumb luck and began to leave. That night in the forest, Sona began telling their leader through the crystal ball that Yuji was far too useless to be a threat to their group and vowed to annihilate their next target. However, when Yuji realized it was the priest Stale who gave him the special dagger to slay the dragon, he realized it was too dangerous to allow them to leave. So he activated a magical spell to freeze the entire hut, icing their bodies. The following day, as he returned to the armor shop, he told the dude that he wanted to buy monster armor. However, the man thought he was still a broke loser and tried shooting him off again, saying that the master only pays attention to top GS. As Jaegal appeared before them, he screamed at him to get out of his head and began saying that Yuji was the strongest customer he's ever had, and that even his armor's defense stats were nothing compared to his overpowered slimes. He said that he must forge a special armor for them, and as he noticed their aura, he revealed that the slimes were the most broken monsters in all of human history. When Yuji wondered if they were hopeless of ever getting armor, Jaegal told him that they would find the right material for armor in the Jewel of Lesser Fire Dragons. But even then, Jaegal said that the blue dragons were not easy to kill, and that he would certainly forge a special armor for his monsters if he managed to retrieve their jewel. Just as Yuji was about to leave, he decided to ask if there were some grown fire dragons on the mountains. But even though Jaegal told him that there was, he went on to reveal that they were very rare to find. Realizing he may be hopeless of ever finding them, Yuji told him that he would just try to find the blue lesser dragons. Before long, he arrived at the Adventurers Guild and told the mistress that he intends to complete all the quests to annihilate the dragons on the mountain. But she thought the worthless loser must have lost his mind, seeing as the tasks were probably impossible. When he tried telling her that he would destroy them with his magic, she revealed that magic doesn't work on lesser fire dragons because they were protected by the magic from their jewel. On top of that, their scales were really thick and could not be slashed by a sword. When Yuji wondered how they're supposed to kill them, the mistress revealed that they doused them with large amounts of water since the fire dragons were naturally weak and could only survive from the heat of the volcano. Realizing it was super easy, Yuji wondered why all the dragons have not been eliminated already. So the mistress told him that it was difficult to carry water all the way up the mountain. And if they were to get water, they would need to cross a piranha-infested river that devours everyone that tries to cross to the other side. As Yuji realized he could annihilate several of the monsters at the same time, he decided to claim this additional quest. But the girl thought he probably needed to cool down. A few hours later, as they arrived on the mountains, Yuji realized that the volcano was still active. As he wondered if it was safe to stay around the area, his slimes decided to investigate, and Yuji soon realized that they met their old relatives. As he used his appraisal skill, he realized they were red slimes, a different species from his own, and decided to tame them. Before long, they arrived at the piranha-infested river. So Yuji activated a slime net, tangling all the slimes and allowing them to descend deep into the water. As the slimes jumped into a hole, they soon returned, pursued by the piranha. However, they managed to trap it, and Yuji pulled them towards the surface before his eyes. The fish destroyed the net and tried to end him, but Yuji trapped it inside medium-ranged frost. However, it destroyed the ice and tried to devour him, but he escaped and burned it with a fireball until it became grilled tuna. When he was done, they began heading closer to the mountains, and he soon noticed the lesser fire dragons. As he appeared before the first dragon, he unleashed his water cannon on the monster, successfully killing it before his eyes. The dragon emitted heat, and the special jewel fell out of his body. Within a few minutes, Yuji slayed several dragons and thought they were just a waste of time. At that moment, Yuji spotted a senior blue dragon and thought it was certainly a better option. So with thought communication, he commanded his slimes to surround the beast and unleash water cannons from every direction, hoping to drown the monster. However, it managed to survive the attack, and Yuji realized he needed to try a different magic. In an instant, he froze it with medium-range frost, but the dragon destroyed the ice. As Yuji realized he must increase his attack, he commanded his slimes to gather before the dragon and activated another medium-range frost, but multiplied the effect this time. At that instant, a mountain of ice covered up the monster, and as it melted off, the dragon died instantly. Just then, the special jewel broke from his body, and Yuji realized that this would make the perfect armor. So as he returned to the guild, he submitted all the quests, saying that he had killed every single lesser fire dragon in the mountains and even the useless piranha. To impress her with his skill, Yuji revealed that he managed to lure the fish towards the surface before killing it, and the mistress thought he must be a demigod. That night, as Yuji arrived at the smith's shop, he decided to reveal the jewel from the blue lesser fire dragon. At the sight of this, Jeju realized that Yuji was more powerful than he thought, and Yuji wondered if he could forge an armor for Proud Wolf, as Jegal told him that he could. Yuji revealed another blue jewel for his slime's armor, but the men wondered how he managed to kill 2 blue lesser fire dragons. Just then, his slime spewed all the jewels from the other dragons, and Jeju realized that Yuji was definitely not from this world. By the following day, Jeju already made an armor for Proud Wolf and the slime. So to test the new upgrade, Proud Wolf started running across the mountains and was even faster than the breeze. When it was the slime's turn, it began darting around the mountains, and Yuji thought it was pretty much invisible. To test the full strength of their armor, he decided to boost their abilities with his magic, increasing their speed to get it close to the flash of light. As Jabal suggested he try their attacking ability, Yuji decided to cast medium-range frost on the mountain, and the entire thing was covered up in ice. With Jagal in shock, he wondered how Yuji became powerful. But Yuji told him to shut his worthless mouth. Later at the shop, Jejo began telling Yuji that the blue jewels could only bear a little magic, and that they would be destroyed if he tried to increase his magical powers. When Yuji wondered if there was a stronger jewel that could contain all of his powers, Jejo told him that only a fire dragon jewel could do the job, but said that it could never be defeated. As Yuji wondered why, Jejo began telling him that the fire dragon lives deep inside the volcano and only emerges on rare occasions. Later in the room, as Yuji remembered Jejo's words, he wondered if the volcano would erupt after he slays the fire dragon and thought he was better off abandoning his plan. Just then, he discovered that hundreds of dragons have appeared on the mountains and thought the blue moon of salvation probably lured out the monsters. So he commanded his minions to head for the volcano, wondering if any creepy dudes could be spotted close by. Just then, they noticed a pair of men traveling up the mountain, and Yuji soon realized that the volcano was erupting before his eyes. The fire dragon emerged, and his minions realized that the creepy men were headed for the volcano. As the first man, Juru, wondered what they would do if their plan failed. Fatso told him that their men from the neighboring city of Ordarian had promised that the plan would certainly succeed. Hearing their words, Yuji realized they were definitely members of the Blue Moon of Salvation and activated a magical net to capture them. But their reflex was quick, and they evaded it. At the sight of this, Yuji thought they were pros after all. But the men wondered if the net was merely a trap from the mountains. As they continued towards the volcano, Yuji tried casting another net from behind, but they dodged and Juru cast his sword into the invisible slime. However, Yuji was smart and finally restrained them from the rear. Just as the slimes began appearing before them, the men realized their plans had gone south and decided to bite a pill, sealing their spot in the next Isekaied. At Yuji's command, the slimes began observing the barrels, and they realized that they were filled up with water. Before long, Dryad appeared on the mountains to observe the water, and she revealed that it was filled with evil magic to rile up the fire dragon. Unwilling to take any risks, Yuji activated a dispel curse and purified the water. At that instant, with the threat gone, Dryad vanished from the mountains and Yuji thought it was all over. However, the dragons began roaring and a man appeared at Yuji's door, telling him to leave the town before it started raining. Just then, the rain began and the fire dragon grew angry as Yuji realized something was definitely wrong. He recalled that the man already told him that the dragon always causes chaos every time it awakens in the rain. At that instant, the dragon started heading for the town, looking to repeat history, but the townspeople began to leave. As the fire dragon arrived at the river, Yuji wondered if it would be too afraid to cross. However, the heat from its body killed all the fishes and Yuji realized there was no stopping this monster. Having no other choice, Yuji realized he needs to be the one to defeat the dragon, since he's the worthless protagonist of this anime and has a cheat leveling system. So as Proud Wolf appeared before the fire dragon, he cast medium range frost to trap its foot, but it broke the ice. However, Yuji wouldn't quit either and trapped its head in another medium range frost, but it shattered instantly. Looking to make an attack of its own, the dragon prepared a great blast, but Yuji countered it with yet another medium range frost. However, the dragon soon arrived at another river and Yuji thought this was his perfect opportunity to end it. At that moment, a large barrier filled up with water, and as it burst, the flood swept the dragon away and Yuji revealed that he prepared this as a backup plan. However, the dragon re-emerged and unleashed a terrible blast at his minions, but Yuji managed to protect them with a barrier. As the dragon began preparing an even greater blast that would obliterate the entire town, Yuji activated Permafrost's curse. In that instant, he unleashed a powerful ice breath against the flames, successfully overpowering it and freezing the dragon before breaking into pieces. Just then, the rain stopped, and as Yuji noticed the huge fire dragon's jewel, the slimes revealed the strange machine they found on the mountains. That evening, when Yuji returned to the smith's shop, he told Jejo that he found a rare jewel from a dragon. As Jejo realized it was probably from the fire dragon, he promised to make him a special armor. Later at the guild, Yuji decided to ask the mistress if she's ever been to Ordarian. So she told him that she has and said that it was the favorite place for adventurers who were running away from paying taxes. Just then, the slime vomited the machine and Yuji wondered if she knew what it was. She told him that it was one of the guild's artificial rain machines and was mostly used in times of drought to draw the rain. She said that every town has their own machine for summoning the rain, but discovered that the name on this machine has been scraped off. As Yuji remembered the men's words, he wondered why they were trying to destroy the town and wished that he could wipe them out at the same time. In the morning, as Yuji received his armor, Jejo tried asking for his name, so he ignored him. As he later arrived at the Adventurers Guild, Yuji discovered that he was being spied on, and the men wondered why he didn't choose any new quest. However, when they headed into a private room, Yuji discovered that they were members of the Blue Men of Salvation, and that they intended to eliminate him as they considered him a threat. However, they were afraid that their attack would draw everyone's attention towards their secret group and thought it would cancel their plans to destroy the world. Just then, the priest Stale and his aide appeared before Yuji, but he wondered how they managed to find him. Shortly, as they began to speak in a church, Father Stale told him that he was led here by a vision and said that he's been hoping to see Yuji once again. As Yuji wondered why members of the Blue Moon of Salvation were trying to kill him, Father Stale decided to tell him his story. Many years ago, he was the leader of the Blue Moon Church, an infamous church group that tried avenging their fallen comrades in different cities, and before long they began expanding with new followers. The leader of the Blue Moon of Salvation was one of his followers, and at the time, he thought he was probably too passionate for his own good. Before he realized it, Walter began running wild with his ambitions and started creating a secret group of his own. So one day, God warned him to destroy the Church of the Blue Moon, but he chose to ignore the vision as he was afraid of losing all his companions. However, a few days later, they were all massacred and he barely escaped with his life. The attack was an attempt to take over the growing church, and he revealed that Walter actually led this attack. So with the church destroyed, he managed to brainwash his followers into thinking the world needs to be cleansed and created the secret group Blue Moon of Salvation. Father Stale confessed that he feels guilty for starting the church in the first place and has come to warn Yuji before it was too late. He said that his new vision was probably a warning that the Blue Moon of Salvation should be destroyed and began reading the words from the vision as proof. He said that Walter was a tainted light that was leading the world into chaos and that only an emissary of the divine could face him, and said that the dagger of Kethis was enough to prove that Yuji was the emissary. That night in his room, Yuji began wondering how he could possibly be the emissary, realizing he only has the dagger in the first place because the priest gave it to him. As he wondered what their legends were anyway, he thought he was better off asking the priest himself. However, when he arrived at the church the next day, a man told him that the priest had already left. So as Yuji began to leave the town hoping to find him, he decided to ask for his slime's help and soon discovered that the priest was deep inside the forest, so he headed to find him. At the same time in the forest, Father Stale and his aide Johann arrived at a secret tree. As he cast a spell in the darkness before him, the entrance opened and they headed inside. On the other hand, Yuji was able to tame more slimes and soon discovered the whereabouts of the priests inside the tree. As Father Stale and Johann drew closer to the ancient temple, a few members of the Blue Moon of Salvation prepared to attack him. But he cast an anti-magic barrier on himself and Johann, ready for a fight. Inside the forest, Yuji and his minions finally discovered the secret tree and he cast a Dispel Cursed to destroy the darkness, permanently exposing the entrance. As they made their way inside, they discovered that Father Stale had slain all the men and Yuji realized he was still a badass. Meanwhile, Father Stale and Johann finally made their way into the temple and saw Walter before them. As the priest began saying that his visions have led him here, and that he wishes to know what they meant, Walter told him that it was his end, and that his men were ready to do the honors. However, the priest set one flying away and began a series of offensive moves that knocked them on their butts. However, Walter was unfazed, having prepared a new plan already. Before the priest knew it, he was restrained by a magical rope and was electrocuted. At that instant, as he discovered that Johann belongs with the Blue Moon of Salvation, he realized that he was lured into a trap. Just then, Walter began telling him that he has been waiting to eliminate Yuji ever since he discovered that he has been foiling his plans to destroy the world. However, when he realized that Yuji was far too powerful than they imagined, they thought the priest was definitely responsible and Johann blamed him for giving Yuji the dagger of Kethis. Even so, Yuji continued ruining all their plans and even captured their best men and killed the fire dragon they hoped would destroy several villages. However, Walter was certain that his plans would succeed this time and said that he intends to create a brand new world. As Father Stale tried saying that he wasn't afraid to enter Nirvana, Walter decided to awaken his followers as some kind of zombie spirit, saying that they've all been cursed. Just then, the wall exploded and Yuji appeared before their eyes, saying that he came to ask the priest a few questions. Afraid their plans would be screwed once more, Johann launched a fireball at him, but he repelled it with a barrier and freed the priest with a spell. At that moment, Walter realized that Yuji was the emissary and decided to awaken all his zombie followers. As the zombies tried to end them, Yuji cast a spell and his slimes blasted them away with fireballs. But Walter utilized the distraction and left. Inside the secret lab, Walter sat on a machine and revealed that this was the source of their power. At that instant, the dragon grace penetrated his body, but Yuji sent the final zombie flying inside as they appeared before him. Wondering if he intends to become the next Frankenstein, he began transforming right before their eyes. As Yuji realized he may become a threat, he blasted him with a fireball, but he rose out of flames and tried to punch him into the ground before getting rescued by the wolf. Just then, the monster unleashed his wings and increased in size, even growing a tail. As he prepared to blast, Yuji cast an anti-magic barrier and repelled the attack in an instant. The beast appeared before the barrier, but as Yuji launched a fireball, he vanished, instantly darting around the cave, and Yuji realized that he's fast. However, he decided to continue his attacks and unleash a fireball barrage from his slimes, but the beast managed to evade them. Even so, Yuji wouldn't quit and his slimes began launching more fireballs before eventually blasting him with a barrage of flames. However, the monster remained unscathed, so Yuji decided to try a new attack. As he threw his slime far away towards the beast, the monster tried blasting it, but Yuji cast an anti-magic barrier, allowing his minions to don their armor immediately. He activated Physical Boost and Proud Wolf began darting around like a flash of light, until appearing before the monster. Just then, Yuji unleashed a great fireball that burned it, sending him crashing into the ground. However, the beast managed to survive and sucked up the dragon grace from a zombie, regenerating at that instant. As he flew towards Yuji, he summoned a huge fireball that burned his arm off, but he absorbed more zombies and even generated extra arms. Just as Yuji realized he was upgrading with the dragon grace, the beast appeared before his eyes. But he burned it with a fireball, and all his slimes continued launching flames at him. Even so, the beast merely regenerated, saying he was practically unkillable. However, Yuji soon discovered a new plan and narrowly escaped getting smashed. As the beast tried pursuing him, Yuji cast a fireball and launched another with his slime. However, the monster continued absorbing the zombies and regenerating his body, but Yuji cast a Dispel Curse, turning his feet into stone. Angered by this, the beast appeared before Yuji, ready to end him. But he cast an anti-magic barrier, allowing his shield to take the onslaught. However, as the barrier began to crack, the beast punched it away, but Yuji restrained him with a magical net, and as his slimes gathered, Yuji cast several magical nets binding the monster. At that instant, with Yuji ready to eliminate him, he summoned Hellfire of Decimation and consumed him in the mighty flame. However, even in defeat, Walter thought his plan was still successful and summoned the divine emissary that dwelled inside the machine. At that moment, the machine awakened and began absorbing all the magical energy around the cave into a bright, shiny light. Just then, a new light descended into the cave, revealing a new enemy who called himself the Sage. When Yuji wondered who he was, Father Stale revealed that he was probably the sage he saw in his vision. According to their legends, Yuji the Sage was their emissary, but had lost to a mighty dragon in his previous life. All this time, Walter's plan was to resurrect him with his own life, the same way Yuji was summoned with the spirit summoning ritual. Hearing these words, Yuji wondered if the sage was the god that gave him the vision. But Father Stale said that he was an evil demon that should be annihilated instantly. Just then, the sage unleashed Hellfire of Decimation. But Yuji summoned a barrier just in time, and the entire area was destroyed by the fire. As the sage ascended towards the sky, Yuji wondered how he managed to unleash the Hellfire of Decimation and thought he was definitely powerful. Deciding to eliminate him, he activated boost spells for his minions. And as Proud Wolf began jumping towards the sage, he cast anti-magic barriers to serve as support, allowing him to fly towards the sky. Just as he appeared before the sage, a slime tried spewing fireballs. But he shielded the attack as he unleashed Hellfire of Demise. The wolf narrowly avoided it. So as the slime spread out, Yuji cast anti-physical barriers to serve as support. As they were high enough, the slimes began releasing fireball barrage, but the sage blocked all of the attacks. When the slimes tried distracting him, the sage unleashed a great fire, but Yuji made it invisible as the flames erupted into an explosion. Just then, another slime tried catching him off guard and launched a fireball, but the sage deflected it with a barrier. As Yuji noticed he was starting to lose his mana points, he wondered how the sage had the ability to keep unleashing Hellfire of Demise and Decimation without losing his own mana. He thought his MP might be infinite and commanded his slimes to gather above him. As the slimes jumped towards the sage, Yuji activated Medium Range Frost and multiplied the attack, but the sage cast a barrier before getting iced. Immediately, he began cracking the ice and caused it to shatter into pieces. However, the slimes were ready to attack again and began using the ice as steps to get closer. When they were close enough, Yuji activated a spell and spewed a mighty fireball that was nearly the size of the sun, eventually bringing down the sage. Even so, he remained unscathed and unleashed a Hellfire of Decimation that was 10 times more powerful than the usual. So Yuji activated the same spell and the monstrous fire collided, burning as terribly as the flames of hell, until Yuji's fire prevailed. However, he soon discovered that he used up too much MP, but noticed that the sage was unhurt. Just then, he raised his hand and purple light rays descended from the sky before dispersing across their world. At that moment, cursed machines awakened and the dragon's grace began spreading into the clouds. As it started to rain, the cursed magic hypnotized all the monsters and Yuji realized that the towns were in danger. Inside the forest, as a beast was slain, Hiel and his companions realized that all the beasts had gone out of control. They thought this was very strange, so Gale suggested that they return to town. As they started running away, the monsters pursued them, but Yuji cast a spell, and his slime destroyed them with fireballs. Just then, the sage began ascending towards the sky and revealed that he was once the savior of this world before he was killed by a mighty dragon. His failure to save the world filled him with regret, and he thought he was better off destroying the universe before another mighty dragon emerges. Hearing these words, Yuji thought the sage was definitely the dragon that should be slain and wondered if he was the savior to slay him. Just then, the sage activated a spell and unleashed hellfire of decimation on him. As Yuji realized his barrier would soon be broken, he decided to fight back, and they began casting fire spells, causing the sky to erupt with explosions. Just then, the slimes warned Yuji that the monsters were heading for the towns and that with their number, the people probably stood no chance of fighting them off. With Yuji desperate to protect them, he activated his spell and burned the monsters with fireballs. However, the sage thought he was far too weak and tried saying that he couldn't protect everyone, but Yuji continued destroying all the monsters and even ignored his decreasing MP. At the same time, Dryad told him that the townspeople were preparing to fight off the monsters and Gale tried riling up the men. At Yuji's command, a slime attached itself to Gale as Yuji thought he could use it to provide them some backup magic, and he discovered that all the other towns were starting to prepare for the battle, hoping to show him their support. It was at that moment that Yuji realized that he probably screwed himself up in his former life for thinking everyone was trash, and that he never needed their assistance. He thought that having some teamwork would not have been a terrible idea after all, and decided to boost the townspeople with attack and defense magic. At that instant, their strength increased, and they began eliminating all the monsters in the forest. With the beasts finally taken care of, Yuji thought it was time to face off once more with the sage. But Father Stale began revealing that he just saw a new vision of a divine judgment being delivered by the sun and the moon. However, Yuji thought there was definitely something in that man's head and decided to drink the mana restorative to restore his magic powers. Immediately, a glowing light surrounded him, and he realized that his MP and HP had been restored. Ready for the battle, he activated a jump boost spell and leaped on a physical barrier, casting the spells until he was high enough to reach the sage. When the sage wondered why he was determined to protect this world, all the memories began to flash across Yuji's mind, and he told him that he loves this world exactly the way it is. Realizing he could not be convinced, the sage prepared to unleash multiple hellfires of demise and cause a series of explosions. However, when he tried to cast hellfire of decimation, Yuji unleashed his own, erupting into another series of explosions. As Divine Strike appeared on the system, Yuji realized that it was the same skill that weakened the dragon and wondered if it was the judgment Father Stale told him about. As he raised his hand, he unleashed Divine Strike on him, sending him crashing down. When he realized he could use the skill once again, he raised his hand and summoned the lightning on him. Realizing it truly worked, Yuji continued summoning the lightning like his life depended on it and successfully weakened the sage. However, as he realized that he was still alive, Yuji drew his dagger and directed his slight slimes to swing into action. Desperate to unleash his full powers, the sage prepared massive energy blasts, but Yuji threw his knife and summoned the Divine Strike on it. Their combination created an eclipse, and Father Stale thought this was his vision coming to pass. As Yuji appeared with the dagger, the sage blasted the ground, hoping to destroy the entire world. However, Yuji managed to trap both of them inside barriers that were 6 times stronger than the usual. But just as the barriers began to crack, Yuji sealed them with a total isolation array, and they ascended from the ground. The sage wondered how the barrier remained so solid, but Yuji told him that his question was irrelevant and charged at him with the dagger, piercing him deep inside. As he activated the special magic, his body began cracking and the barrier exploded with a powerful light, allowing Yuji to descend with a golden aura. At the sight of this, the townspeople wondered if he was an angel, but he fell from exhaustion and was happy that his barrier spell saved him from cracking his skull. That evening, as Yuji began to leave the town, he wondered if all the people were safe. So Dryad revealed that they were celebrating their victory against the beasts, and he was happy that they were all at peace. At the capital the following night, Yuji began eavesdropping on another group of Blue Moon of Salvation members. As the leader began saying that the Purifier and Mightier Dragon Grace machine was nearly finished, he revealed that they would definitely annihilate the entire world with this machine. He said that this was the only way to defeat the Black Dragon of Ruin, and that it would definitely cleanse their tainted world for good. As Yuji overheard these words through his slime, he wondered what they meant and wished he could just end them all at once. Just then, his slimes warned him of a monster, and a huge tiger appeared before his eyes. However, as he realized that several other monsters were lurking in the darkness, he wondered just how much he could make off of them at the guild. So the next day, as he arrived at the Adventurers Guild, he decided to claim the bounty for killing the tiger. At the sight of it, the guild mistress wondered where the rest of his team were, saying that he most definitely could not have killed it on his own. As Yuji tried saying that he did so all by himself, she thought he must have hit his head and was suffering from a trauma. Just then, a lady appeared, and Lily told her that Yuji killed the monster tiger. As she began to examine it, she realized that Yuji was the legendary beast Tamer who was prophesied to have the powers of ending the entire world. And at that moment, everyone began noticing him, realizing he was truly the legendary hero who saved their world from being destroyed. However, Yuji was already sick of dealing with all their useless talk and wished he could Isekaied himself again by jumping off the cliff. Thanks for watching. Want more anime recaps? Subscribe to channels and turn on the notification bell. See you later. Watch those next videos.